everyone, and welcome to another episode of TED Excellence, the show that is itself an act of penance for all the bad I've done in the world. And I come to you live from my Corona bunker on the moon with Dogcat Fox, a Pepperjack, and all of you. Yes, hello everyone. Welcome to Thursday, Theologian Thursday, I guess. Hope you're all doing well. It's been a busy week for moi, work-wise and otherwise, but that is not what we're going to focus on today. We're going to focus on your immortal soul. Maybe. I'm not quite sure, because today's subject, the forgotten tradition of sin. I'll talk about that in a moment. First, though, couple of either before the stream or just as the stream began messages. Thank you, Mike Casado, at work and have to watch later. Also, hi Scribe in chat. Hi Mike. This is me waving. You can't see it. I'm waving really hard. Maybe you can hear it on the microphone. I don't know. Thank you, Mike. And as well, thank you, Tall Person. Today is Ascension, commemorating Jesus' ascension into heaven, described in the New Testament of the Bible 40 days after his resurrection on Easter. Okay, I take Tall Person at, is Tall, I don't know. Tall Person is androgynous in my mind. I don't know. It could, person. Anyway, I take Tall Person at their word on specific days and their significance. But that was not intended on my part to coincide with this theme and this day. But hey, happy accidents, right? Thank you, Tall Person. But before I start talking about the theme and all that other stuff, who is here joining me today for this journey into ethical ambiguity, perhaps? Funtime Bats, hello. Matt Barnes, hello. Jaeger Pony, hello. Debate Fly, hello. Texas Attorney General Secret Agent, hello. John Miller, hello. Raziel, hello. Somnamnul Nation, hello. Tall Person, hello. Jamie Milquist, hello. Dr. Keeve, hello. Zeke Weiss, hello. Deco, hello. Juggernaut, hello. Raul Aguilar, hello. Roger Reynolds, hello. Your boy, Pat, hello. Hearst Gravegear, hello. Lissa Leo, hello. Megan Ring, hello. Tux Mint, hello. Brad Young, hello. Who are we missing? Well, there's one person we're missing. I don't know if I can begin until that person arrives, but I'll give it a second. Either way, yes, the forgotten tradition of sin. Now, I am not a theologian by any stretch of the imagination. I have a cursory understanding of the major religions, maybe some a little bit more than others. So if this turns into some kind of, I don't know, Bible analysis or, theology class, I might be entirely at a loss, and I'll just have to make the most of it for what I can. But the title alone intrigued me because I don't think anyone forgot how to sin, depending on how you define sin, obviously, a bad act. So I'm not sure what it means. This is a complete mystery box. This is not a TEDx that, as far as I know, that tackles one of the outstanding social issues or socio-political concerns or police reform or anything like that. It just, I have no idea. And that's what caught my attention. Thank you, Gay Rascal. Muy late, je suis désolé. How be? And I don't know if I pronounced that correctly at all. I did my best. I don't speak French. Well, I mean, a couple of words, but otherwise, I know more German. That probably says a lot about me. Let's see. Well, I don't see Lexi Mads here. So I don't know if I can begin, but I might have to without. Get your bingo cards ready. Today's bingo card is bingo card B. B as in blasphemy. You can find the links to the bingo cards in the description below and get yours ready. Since this is not your usual TEDx, at least as far as like subject matter, I'm not sure if we'll get a bingo out of this one, but then I've said that before and been surprised elsewise. A couple more hellos and then we will begin. Little Mo Sislak, hello. Brittany Holland, hello. Best Remy, hello. Sabian 187, hello. And thank you for the happy birthday, Brittany Holland. Yes, today is my virtual birthday. So thank you so much. But all that being said, I'll start off with a couple of seconds for sound test. You guys tell me if you can hear this, and then we will begin. Can I just say that I'm not much of a fan of skinny jeans? I mean, I guess those aren't technically, it's hard to say, they're a little wrinkly and everything, but I had a conversation with somebody today about how skinny jeans kind of, I don't know, the visual just kind of irks me a little bit. Anyway, did you guys hear the applause there and him walking out onto the red circle? If you heard that, then we will begin. Give me a high sign real quick, guys. Let's see. This talk clocks in at just over 15 minutes, so basically your average TEDx duration. Sounds heavenly, says some emulation. All right, so lay it on me, Randall Flagg.
If the popularity of the 1995 David Fincher film Seven...
Whoa. Okay. Just for those of you that don't follow me on Twitter, I made a joke that this talk would be talking about the movie Seven, since it was about sin. That's a little creepy, honestly. The first thing he says when he comes out is to talk about Seven. Okay, all right. Also, just a note, the original audio for this presentation was awful. It was mono, not stereo, and the background noise was a constant. So I'll tell you right now, insofar as the quality of a TEDx is concerned, you are getting a higher quality of presentation from me than TEDx itself provides. Service with a smile.
Tells us anything. It's that even in an increasingly secular society like America, there remains a deep fascination with the idea of sin.
Well, it could also be that the movie Seven was an effective thriller / horror movie / detective movie, and that it just happened to be revolving around a killer who used the 7 deadly sins as the theme of his crimes. I don't think they necessarily went to the movie because of sin, but then I don't know.
In the film, the antagonist, known only as John Doe, leverages the 7 deadly sins as a motif to string together a series of gruesome crimes, forcing the audience to reckon with questions such as, what is sin? And how shall we respond when people sin?
I guess it could do that. You know, art is interpretive most of the time, so I don't think most people would exit the theater thinking that's how we should treat people that do these things. But okay, that's one possibility. Also, it said that he's an author and a pastor. So did I just step into Bible study?
And though we recoil at Doe's extremism, viewers generally accept the film's premise, which is a sin is a moral failure deserving of judgment and punishment.
I would hope people recoil from the characters doling out of justice for these sinners because it's murder. Again, sin, it's a little bit subjective these days, since people have started to not direct their entire lives based on a singular book for the most part. But I guess, in a way, if you do wrong by someone else, either you should or karmically you probably are owed some kind of justice, yes. If we're not talking about out-and-out crime, per se.
I've been a pastor now for over 15 years, and I can assure you that this way of thinking about sin comes to us from the tradition of Christianity.
You don't say.
And like the box at the end of the film Seven, it is perhaps a gift that was best left unopened.
Wait, sin is a gift?
I was born and raised in a conservative Christian home.
I'm shocked.
And the effects of thinking of sin in this way, they've been with me for as long as I can remember. When I was 10 years old, I checked out a book on magic from the library and learned a few simple tricks with a deck of cards.
And so you were performing witchcraft?
Coincidentally, around the same time, my younger brother and I were learning how to play blackjack, and we started using our collection of basketball cards as betting currency, to make the games a little more interesting.
You were gambling? How conservative was your home again?
And much to my brother's chagrin, every time we played, I insisted on being dealer.
Yes, some emulation reminds me as I'm getting lost in the rhetoric here. We do have a bingo card to pay attention to. So first off, let's go to the bingo card. Let me get my bingo card set up here myself. All right, so on the board, going to circle free space. And as he's talking about his childhood, we're going to circle childhood or family anecdote. And let's go over the card real quick and just make sure we haven't missed anything else. Or I should say I haven't missed anything else. Anecdote that probably never happened. He hasn't given us one yet that's unique or outstanding. Self-vilification or wretchedness. Well, if he comes from a particularly religious home, I'm assuming he already thinks of himself as a sinner, but I'll wait for him to say it. Systemic institutional, no. Whitelist example, no, not yet. Word salad, not yet. Leaves out vital context, I don't know, not yet. Collectivize his own demographic, not yet. White supremacy, no. A list, not yet. I mean, you could say the 7 deadly sins, but I'll wait on that. Privilege, no. Equity, no. Plays victim, not yet. Attempt to coin new buzzword, buzz phrase, not yet. Wage gap, no. Patriarchy, no. Feminism, no. Mind reading assumes motives. I'll bet we get there. Diversity and inclusion, no. Marginalization, no. Make something about race, sex, etc. for no reason. Nope. Contradicts own point or argument, not yet. Benevolent condescension, not yet. And microaggressions, unconscious bias, not yet. So on the board, free space, childhood or family anecdote. Let's continue.
Friends, you're not wrong for guessing where the story might be going. So my strategy was I would let him win some of the earlier rounds for the cards I didn't really care about. Let him build his confidence a little. Then when he'd put a card of real value on the line, suddenly, little sleight of hand, dealer hits 21. Ha! It's a miracle. But my newfound joy was short-lived, because then I would lay in bed later that night, terrified that God would strike me in my sleep.
Well, obviously you weren't terrified enough in the moment of actually doing the action. But hey, this is what confession is for, to cleanse yourself of the things you did wrong that you already knew were wrong, but you did them anyway, because we are all sinners. We are all fallible. Are we not, brothers and sisters?
Because I was taught growing up that things like cheating my younger brother made God very angry, and that heaven had no interest in a sinner like me.
Uh-huh.
And I thought, as good as he is, I very much doubt I could bribe old St. Peter to let me in a slide, albeit slightly less pearly gate, in exchange for my new shadily acquired Shaquille O'Neal rookie card.
Right. Okay. So are we just going into your standard boilerplate speech of we are all sinners, etc., etc.? I don't know. Thank you, John Miller. Feel we are getting sermonized already. Well, he is a pastor. I don't think you quite get away from that reflex without a little bit of sermonizing. I'm just not sure where this is going, since TEDx usually doesn't do religious stuff, as far as I can recall. Of course, I can't say that I've ever looked for it all that much. Oh, other people are here. St. Michael, appropriate that you're here, since we are in Theology Town, and Mike Savage, Blarg. Did Lexi Mads ever show up? No? Okay, well, I'll continue.
My religious heritage has long had this all-consuming seriousness toward sin. For many Christians, it's seen as like the defining feature of what it means to be human.
Well, okay, without sin as a mechanism in faith, whether you're talking about Christendom or several other religions, there really is no point to the religion, because adhering to the religious doctrine is supposed to keep one's soul and life cleansed of the things that will prevent you from going to your great reward. So In fact, sin is probably one of the key elements to any religion, because if there are not rules in which breaking them risks your soul, then there's really no reason to have any kind of dogma, is there? And again, I'm sure there's somebody out there who has far more knowledge of religions in general who could argue otherwise. This is just me talking as a layman. That's my simple understanding of things. Thank you, Chicago Mike. You can't see it on the screen, but unless you've got the chat and going live on the side. But it's Dogcat Fox saying hiya. Hiya, Dogcat Fox. Wowie, wow, wow. Dogcat's Fox says hello. Thank you, Mike. Anyway, tell us more about sin just happening to be a key part of religion.
We're all sinners deserving of punishment.
Uh-huh.
In fact, many Christian traditions also teach that God, who created the entire universe and who supposedly loves all creation, also, at the same time, cannot stand humans because of sin.
Yeah, it is one of those ongoing contradictions in the whole pantheon of things. God loves everyone unless you don't follow his rules, and then he's going to send you to eternal damnation, that kind of thing. Actually, this reminds me, I took a class in college called The Bible as Literature for one of my English prerequisites or whatever. And I kind of knew it going in, but there were a lot of people who took that class seeming not to understand that it wasn't about studying the Bible in a religious sense, but looking at it as stories, looking at it as literature, critiquing it as, a written work. And I remember one of the things that got me, well, maybe not in trouble, but caused me to get some dirty looks from the people there who were there because they treated it as a religious class, even though it wasn't. We read through Genesis, and at the end of that section or whatever, the teacher asked for some, feedback or whatever, and I raised my hand, not being raised in a religious household, and I said, well, what I found curious is that there's plenty of evidence in this that God is omnipotent. He created the land, he created the animals, created the planet, the whole 9 yards. There's not a lot of evidence that God is omniscient, because he keeps being surprised and becomes angry at what people, specifically people, are doing against his word. So either he is not omniscient or he's a liar to his own creations. And I got a lot of dirty looks from a lot of people on that one. But like I say, you read the story, it's just, anyway.
Hence my occasional sleepless nights growing up, terrified that I'd swindled my brother one too many times.
Uh-huh.
This fear.
Yes.
Of offending a perfect God.
Yes.
Has long been leveraged by religion to control and manipulate the masses.
Again, like sin, like breaking the rules equals eternal damnation, that is a key component of any particular, not only religion, but ideology in general, right? We see it today with social justice as an example. If you stray outside the lines of what social justice currently says is appropriate behavior, if you're not woke enough, you will be canceled or effectively damned forever on the temporal plane. So maybe he's making a speech as though he's talking to people who've never considered the foundations of religions, technically. But this is all kind of very simplistic stuff.
And that's bad enough, of course, but a deeper impact of thinking of sin in this way is how it causes us to internalize a sense of disgust. For if we really are nothing more than immoral beings who are unworthy of love, then of course we would possess this sense of self-hatred or shame.
Well, that's how you control people. You make people feel lousy about themselves while offering salvation if they behave correctly. White fragility.
And quite naturally, we would then project this hyper-judgmentalism onto others for their sinful ways.
Well, that's how you bring the good word to the masses.
And you have shame and judgment, this water that so many of us seem to be swimming in.
So, is this an anti-religion presentation? I'm becoming very curious as to where we're going with this.
I say this because I think we need to reimagine how we think about sin.
Okay, well, like I say, I'm not a theologian, but I have a general understanding in my mind of the concept and the mechanism of sin in religion. So, all right, how would you like to reimagine it?
Because it's destroying ourselves and each other.
Um,
And to do that, I want to dust off this forgotten tradition of where the idea of sin even came from. Because sometimes the traditions of the past are our best hope for illuminating a new path forward today.
Religions are nothing but the traditions of the past. At least the major ones. They're thousands of years old at this point. So, okay, do tell.
In ancient Greece, Aristotle did a lot of thinking about what made a story a tragedy. And he concluded that a tragedy is when an otherwise good and noble character experienced this massive reversal in fortune, where instead of a trajectory of well-being, now they're on a trajectory of loss and sorrow.
Yes, that is the general understanding and definition of tragedy. You know, like it's a tragedy because otherwise it is not a fate that befell someone fairly, let's say, you know, or, you know, someone was taken before their time, that kind of thing. There's an injustice to it in some way. That's kind of what defines a tragedy from just your average everyday catastrophe or something.
And this reversal in fortune evoked a sense of pity from the audience, which led to a state of catharsis, or this release of tension and anxiety. And the thing that caused the change in the character's course, the catalyst for their reversal in fortune, was known as hamartia.
Okay.
This Greek word, hamartia, it comes from the world of archery, and literally it means to miss the mark, that your arrow missed the mark of the target that you were aiming at.
Okay, I learned something new. I did not know that. Granted that what he's saying is accurate, but okay. I am glad I watched this now, because at least come away from it with something I did not know previously. Okay. And where are we going with this?
But it also came to have a metaphorical meaning of missing the mark. Similar to how...
well, I would assume metaphorical if you're talking about tragedy, you're talking about events and not actual archery in the course of... Sorry, I cut him off, but I feel like that was, insulting my intelligence a little bit. Nah, maybe not. I don't know.
But it also came to have a metaphorical meaning of missing the mark.
Yes.
Similar to how today we might use sports terminology, like from the world of baseball, we might say that Bob from accounting really whiffed on his presentation this afternoon, by which we mean that he swung and he missed, or just that he didn't do a good job.
Yes, thank you. I got it. I got it the first time.
In Greek tragedies, then, the main character would miss the mark. They would hamartia and catalyze then this tragic reversal in their fortune.
Yeah.
Here's an example.
Okay.
One of the most well-known Greek tragedies is Oedipus Rex from...
Oh, yes. Oh, good old Oedipus. He was up on incest porn before it was cool.
Sophocles. And in this whodunit murder mystery filled with mistaken identity and accidental incest, the audience is privy to all the important information that those who are in the play are blind to.
Okay, cameraman or whoever situated the stage really needs to work on framing and centering a little bit. Not quite sure. I guess they're more interested in like promoting Phoenix College than the speaker.
Such as how Oedipus, in his effort to outsmart fate, inadvertently killed his own father and married his own mother.
Yeah.
And at the end of the play, when all is revealed and all the facts come to light, the play ends with death and suffering and exile and sorrow. A true tragedy in every sense of the word.
Thus, Greek tragedy. Yes, I get it. Where are we going? The path to our destination so far has been quite circuitous. So What's the point?
And for Aristotle, this epitomized tragedy because the audience is watching in horror as Oedipus's life experiences this massive reversal in fortune, as his life deteriorates from one of success and happiness to one of deep pain. And
yeah, everybody loves watching a train wreck, whether they want to admit to it or not, or at least are morbidly curious enough to want to look. Yeah, I get it.
unimaginable loss.
Yes.
And everything changed for Oedipus when he missed the mark, when he hamartia'd. So what was his hamartia? In what way did he miss the mark?
Are we talking about sin, or is this a Greek class?
Well, first, it's important to point out that the thing about hamartia,
Yes.
when someone missed the mark, it wasn't because they had a flaw in their character, that they were a bad person.
Are you sure? Because it could be a flaw in character for a moment that causes someone to make a bad decision. It doesn't necessarily, you're right, make them a bad person, but it could be a character flaw that led to... I'm getting way deeper on this than I should.
No, it was seen as an error in their judgment. But more to the point, this error in judgment wasn't because they were a bad person. This error in judgment was because they had gaps in their knowledge. In other words, in ignorance, they missed the mark.
Okay, so sin should not be seen as a character flaw. It should be seen as just the result of ignorance. And okay, how does that change the dynamic? I mean, again, I'm guessing at this point because I'm not quite sure where he's going. He's halfway through this, and okay.
You don't commit hamartia because you're just a really bad marksman who needs to try harder and do better next time. No, the point is that you missed the mark because maybe no one ever taught you how to plant your feet.
What? Okay. So again, sin is no longer the result of you making a conscious bad choice to take a bad act, necessarily, in the very broad strokes of what sin means. But it's just an accident of ignorance. Is that what you tell yourself to forgive yourself of your own sins? Is that how you frame it in your own mind to make yourself not feel as guilty? I didn't make this decision actively of my own volition. It was just a mistake of ignorance.
Maybe no one ever showed you the right way to notch an arrow.
Did your religious conservative family never show you the right way to follow the religion?
Pull back your bow. Maybe you never learned how to pace your breathing. And because of these gaps in your knowledge, your arrow doesn't fly true.
I really do wonder if he's trying to convince everybody, and mostly himself, that whatever bad things he's done, he's not actually responsible for a little bit. Maybe. Okay.
Oedipus was a good and noble man. And when he pulled back the bow of his life, he aimed at targets such as peace and justice. However, he missed with tragic consequences.
Are you Oedipus in this whole example?
But he missed because he had these massive gaps in his knowledge. For had Oedipus known the truth of his parents' identity, or even more precisely, had he known the truth about his own identity, then he never would have missed the mark by killing his own father.
Tell me how you feel about your mother. Again, are you Oedipus?
And marrying his own mother.
Yeah.
And this is what makes the story so tragic.
Yes, I get it. We got it 5 minutes ago. Yeah, all right. So again, you're looking for a way to avoid your own culpability in your own sins by not making it about a conscious decision to break the rules, but rather a mistake made in the absence of knowledge that someone else should have been responsible for giving you, because nobody taught me that cheating on my wife was a bad thing or whatever.
And I think to the detriment of our culture today, this idea of hamartia has all but been forgotten.
Are you kidding me? The idea of tragedy, what did you do a second ago? Well, not a second ago, a couple minutes ago. You compared, rightly so, hamartia to what we would call today sports analogies. Boy, that guy sure whiffed on that presentation. It hasn't been forgotten. It is still used, and used all the time. The notion of tragedy, the notion of misfortune, and on and on and on, and the analogies thereof have not disappeared. No one's forgotten them. Thank you, Mr. Tickle Trunk, for the dancing happy Dogcat Fox. Oh, Dogcat Fox. Thank you, Mr. Tickle Trunk. Okay, back to the bingo card. I'm circling contradicts own point or argument because, yeah, he did that. He pre-contradicted himself on that one. And, I'm also going to circle benevolent condescension because I feel like I've had my intelligence insulted, if only slightly, 3 or 4 times now. So on the board so far, free space, childhood or family anecdote, contradicts own point or argument, and benevolent condescension. Okay, dude, you've got 6 minutes to tell us how to reimagine sin, although I think I've already figured it out.
And in large part, this is thanks actually to the Bible. And why is that? Well, because in the Bible, this word hamartia shows up almost 500 times.
Really? Okay. All right. So again, sports analogies to, simplify the notion of misfortune. Yeah. All right.
And in nearly every instance that hamartia shows up, the English word that translators use to bring hamartia into our world is the word sin.
Okay, so did the word sin not exist until hamartia was translated? Or the concept thereof? Okay, because in that, if that's the case, if you go to I don't know, well, wait a second. I mean, whose translation of the Bible are we talking about? Okay, again, I am not a theologian, right? When I think of the origins of the Bible, I'm thinking of the Dead Sea Scrolls and that kind of stuff, right? And that religions such as Christianity that would talk about sin were obviously introduced into other cultures such as the Greeks and the Romans and so on. Otherwise, you don't have that whole Jesus is a victim of Rome kind of thing. So is hamartia the original notion, or is that just one of several translations and onward? Because is our speaker skipping a few steps here, or am I just off base? Okay.
In other words, what these ancient spiritual teachers were calling hamartia, we are now calling sin.
So again, you are looking for a way to avoid accountability for your own conscious decisions by saying that your sins are simply a result of someone else not telling you that it was wrong beforehand. Because that's what I'm getting from this.
But these are not the same things. For hamartia implies that people are basically good, and when they miss the mark, it's because they have gaps in their knowledge. And in ancient Greece, the appropriate response to hamartia was compassion. Sin, on the other hand, suggests that people are fundamentally bad. And when we miss the mark, it's because we're morally corrupt.
Okay, stepping back for a moment, yes, these two concepts are completely different. But you didn't say you want to go back to what it used to mean. You said you want to redefine sin. I guess you could say redefining could also mean going back to an old version. But is hamartia the original sin? That works that way too well. Is the concept of hamartia a Greek, you said, concept, a Greek word? Is that the original term used to describe the kinds of acts we are referring to when we're talking about sin as laid down in the Bible? Because I have a feeling that is not the case. And as a result of that, I'm going back to the bingo card. I am circling word salad, because this definitely is. And I'm probably gonna do it anyway, but I'll wait until the end. I'm probably gonna circle weightless example for hamartia, because it doesn't track. Unless the Greeks were the first people to write down the Bible, I don't think you can get away with saying what we think of as sin is actually just an honest mistake. Okay.
And the appropriate response to sin is condemnation.
This guy cheated on his wife or something, didn't he? Or this guy did something awful. Ethically awful, if not criminal. Something ethically awful. He's trying to reframe it. He's trying to, gaslight it all into something that he's actually owed compassion for rather than condemnation. That's my guess. I have no idea. I don't know this guy's history or anything else. I am being the armchair psychologist here. That's all. That's my guess. Thank you, Point Curation. As long as we draw breath, tragedy and sin await us. Yes. However you define those things, bad acts, questionable acts, unethical acts, and things that we have no control over befalling us that are bad, that's called life. That's about it. Okay. Tell me more about how whatever you've done in your life needs to be, you need a hug rather than scorn.
A number of years ago, I was on staff at a church, actually not too far from here. And
is this going to be your confession? Is it? Because I am all ears. Thank you, Gay Rascal. Woke reveal incoming. You might be right.
I was fired rather unexpectedly one afternoon when my bosses learned that my beliefs now include support for the full inclusion of LGBTQ people in the church.
Aha. Okay, well, stepping back from all this other stuff that he's talking about, that is something that actually still happens in churches where, obviously homosexuality is still a sin. And so anyone coming in who either happens to be or is in support of LGBTQ is persona non grata. And, I don't agree with that viewpoint, but churches are obviously free to practice as they will. So if he was fired for that, in my mind, he was fired unjustly. But it is also not at all surprising to me if he was, all things considered. So on that score, he was, in my mind, wrongly terminated. But of course, it is a matter of religious opinion.
A position which, sadly, most churches throughout history have opposed.
Uh-huh.
And so left with no job and no community, my wife and our 3.5 sons at the time were forced to sell the home that we had built and move back to our hometown in Oregon and try to put our lives back together.
So you had no other employable skills? I don't know. I don't know his family situation or anything else. In fact, I don't even know how much a pastor job pays all that much, but okay. I guess you could call that a tragedy. Of course, that wasn't a lack of knowledge by the church's interpretation. And even if you take away the whole question of someone's ethics over it, you made a conscious choice to believe a particular thing about the world, which I don't disagree with, but that's beside the point. So yeah, you're a victim of tragedy in that regard, I would say. Sure. Is that where we're going with this?
Now, it would be easy to look back on that time of my life at that tragic event and those men who fired me with anger, indignation, and feel like they were wrong for what they did.
Well, it would be understandable, but also you should not have been at all surprised, given that you were a pastor for a religion and apparently a church that believed that to be the case, so you kind of already knew it was a thing. Some emulation, let me bring that up here just because I can do this now. Some emulation. Does the attempt to bring back the word Hamaracha, or however you said it, count as a new buzzword, Scribelight? You know, for the sake of things, since I'd never heard of it before, I am going to circle that. That is a good point. So let's see. Where attempt to coin new buzzword, buzz phrase. Circling that on the board. Because he is attempting to conjure it back up as a dodge, maybe?
And certainly when it first happened, that was how I felt.
Yeah. Oh, wait, so you committed the sin of wrath?
But as time has passed and as the pain is lessened, I feel like I can see it a little more clearly for what it was, which was good men committing hamartia.
Good men committing hamartia. Not in their ideology. From their perspective, they were defending the faith. Whether you agree with that or not, we're not talking about what outsiders think. They missed the mark. Well, in this case, in your opinion. So, okay, does that equate to sin then? So you're going to approach them with compassion, not condemnation. Okay, well, that is very Christian of you, I suppose.
Because I believe that their ideas about God were underdeveloped and their understanding of LGBTQ people was just wrong. And it was these gaps in their knowledge that led them to fire a pastor who had served there faithfully for 5 years.
Okay, so you're redefining... Wait. You think that their firing you was a sin? I'm having so many mental inception moments right now trying to wrap my mind around that one. Okay, long pause. If only that were still on the bingo card.
Our culture, as I see it, is drowning in shame and judgment.
Okay.
And it might just be that choosing to believe that when people sin, when they miss the mark, choosing to believe that it is because they have gaps in their knowledge rather than they are bad people and have flaws in their character, this might just be the way that we start to heal our fractured world.
Yeah, except that, I mean, again, sin is such a loaded word with religious context that it's hard to use it in common parlance necessarily to encompass all the things that people do that are bad to each other. But If you make a conscious choice to do something that you know is wrong, and most especially if you end up harming someone or betraying someone, you're not making a mistake. You're making a conscious choice. Now, how the person so victimized decides to approach it in the aftermath is, of course, up to them. I think, for example, one of the most dramatic reactions, I guess you could say, or aftermath, was the end of the trial of Amber Geiger a couple of years ago now, wherein I think it was was it the brother or the cousin? It was either the brother or the cousin of the victim that Amber Geiger killed, who asked the judge while giving an impact statement after the trial had concluded effectively, as to whether or not he could give her a hug and offer her forgiveness, because that is what his, again, brother or cousin, I honestly forget, would have wanted. You know, in any other situation, someone wrongfully takes the life of your loved one, and this guy took the road of forgiveness and compassion. And it was a very powerful moment. And that is a decision left up to the person who has been wronged. And regardless of which direction that could have taken, I would have understood and or respected their decision, right? If that guy had gotten on the stand and completely condemned her for her actions and her inability to think about what she was doing before she did it and on, I would empathize with that. The act of compassion on his part was surprising, but also kind of welcome, and I did not begrudge him for it. But that is up to the person so harmed to decide. You don't necessarily, I mean, you can, I guess, forgive yourself for a decision you consciously made to do wrong. That's always great. But how that is treated or how that is forgiven is up to the victim, mostly, primarily, unless you believe in a higher power, obviously.
Because it helps to restore both our own and each other's fundamental goodness. Condemnation, judgment, these don't provide paths to peace. These
Okay, well, like I say, in life, you rarely find a total peace. And people are inherently flawed, and there are inherently bad people out there that do bad things to people, that do things that you would condemn. Like, for example, terrorism, or murder, or rape. Right? I mean, if you are a civilized human being, you condemn people who commit those acts because they are acts of absolute and total violation of other people's safety, right to live, and on and on and on. And I would condemn someone for having committed any of those things, even if they go on to express remorse. You know, I would condemn the act, and most especially the actor, if they are unremorseful. You know, whether or not they gain forgiveness later on is truly up to the victims and or the survivors related to said victims. But I don't begrudge someone condemning the actions undertaken by someone else that harms a person. I also don't want to completely discount someone's ability to forgive or option to do so. But it's not a one or nothing solution in my mind, because people don't work that way.
These don't provide paths to peace. These can't lift the weights of shame. We will only further reinforce the divides that separate us the more that we see ourselves and each other as nothing more than immoral beings unworthy of love, instead of, I don't know, finite humans who maybe just never learned how to plant our feet, never had anyone show us how to pull back a bow or pace our breathing.
Oh, God. Okay, no pun intended. All right, I can only speak for myself, obviously. I do not see everyone as inherently terrible people. I feel sorry for anyone who moves through the world or who was raised to see people that way as inherently sinful, as inherently flawed, and on and on and on. It's kind of why I'm not a big fan of the current zeitgeist with critical race theory and so on, because it is the same concept. It is looking at people and knowing, without having to do much other, heavy lifting of thought, the content of their character or the quality of their existence or whatever on the basis of their skin color or on the basis of their genitals or whatever. As much as is feasible in my limited human flawed capacity, I do my best to take on people one at a time. Actions over aesthetics, if you get my drift. So if our speaker was raised to believe that people are all just sinners and they're terrible at their hearts and on, that's a bad way to do things, I think. That doesn't help anything. So on that score, I will agree with him. But the idea that there should be no judgment, no condemnation, no set of standards of behavior between people, and the rejection of such acts or such people as to do those things, I don't buy. I don't think it's possible to do so in a society. And B, I don't think it's necessarily healthy in all circumstances. It depends on what we're talking about. And like I say, look, as an example, I'm against the death penalty. I've said this several times, right? But that's me. I don't begrudge anyone necessarily who feels the impulse for that kind of vengeance when circumstances, effectively, or at least morally, would otherwise call for it, classically or by literature or just by tradition. I don't agree with it, but I understand the notion. And I also understand that, thankfully, to this point, I have not been put in a position where I've had to look upon someone as having done something to one near and dear to me that I would even consider that as a punishment. So I also hold out the possibility that I might be wrong. Thus, I don't condemn anyone else for having that notion, right? I approach that with compassion. Compassion towards someone who wishes to condemn someone. See where we get the contradictions here a little bit? That's why, it doesn't quite work.
In the cosmic play that is the story of human history, I don't know what kind of story we're telling yet. On our current course, where we seem determined to see the worst in ourselves and each other, where we call out and cancel others, where we cast our stones of judgment, maybe we're in the midst of a tragedy.
Okay. Well, he suddenly turned course and went onto a line that I can get along with rhetorically. Yes, canceling people, as I think I mentioned earlier, is sort of the new damnation, ideologically speaking, socially, ideologically speaking. Yeah, it's not a positive thing. You see why that doesn't work? It doesn't really do anybody any good, really. Yeah. Oh, Lexi Mans is here. Now, Lexi, everyone will tell you that I was making an effort to look out for you at the beginning of the show, because I knew I couldn't begin without you, but we are a little bit deep in it at this point, so my apologies. But I made a good faith effort.
And if that's the case, I can imagine future generations doing an autopsy to see what went wrong, what caused our reversal in fortune. And they might discover that our culture's great hamartia was when we traded in compassion for missing the mark. And instead chose condemnation. But if we return to its roots,
it's not okay. Is that word actually the root, or is that the Greek interpretation of the concept from the original writings as they were translating them? Because I don't see a Greek translation of the Bible as the roots of the Bible. it seems to me a branch, not a root. There's a big difference there. Secondly, the concept of approaching an act or a situation of tragedy where someone missed the mark, made an honest mistake, let's say, right? We have that concept, an honest mistake. There was no ill intent. There was no malice of forethought. That is not a new concept. And approaching such situations with compassion is not a rare thing. But sin, however, generally speaking, as far as my understanding, denotes a conscious act of, well, bad, for lack of a better word. Right. Missing the mark, whiffing, hamartia. Yeah, that is a forgivable mistake because someone didn't approach it with any sense of intent necessarily, if you know what I mean. Whereas sin isn't. So even if you want to say, oh, well, sin actually means this, there still remains the difference in concept and intention when it comes to certain acts. Some are forgivable, some aren't necessarily so, or not easily so. I don't think you're going to. No, you're this. Thank you, John Miller. Hipster Jesus missed the mark. Yeah. His entire talk thus far has been hamartia.
And we dust off this forgotten tradition of hamartia.
It's not a tradition. It's not a tradition. No more than saying someone whiffed at that presentation is a tradition. It's a turn of phrase. That's it. And I will bet you dollars to donuts that hamartia is not the root of the concept of sin in the Bible or religion in general. I'm pretty sure the Greeks did not write the Bible. I mean, they might have written a version of it, but come on, man. Come on, man. Uncle Joe.
We can rethink our ideas of sin, and this can change everything.
No, it doesn't.
One of my sons right now is 10 years old.
Uh-huh.
And he also occasionally will swindle his younger brother, although this time it's with Pokemon cards instead of basketball.
And there's a huge mechanical difference. Have your sons learn nothing from your mistakes?
And maybe this is what's meant by the whole sins of the father being passed on. I don't know.
It's actually a very direct example of your own making. Wait, sorry. No. You already screwed up. It's not hamartia of the father, right? Hamartia of the father? Because somehow nobody taught them where to plant their feet? And whose job was that again?
But when this happens, I don't tell him that he's a sinner who's made God angry.
Well, I'll give you points for that.
No, I try to remind him of who I think he really is.
Oh, okay. And everything prior to this, prior to cheating and that kind of thing, you weren't doing that?
Call him back to his true identity, that
Oh.
you are a good, kind peacemaker.
What if he isn't? What if his actions and attitude belie that notion? What do you do then, Dad?
I invite him to consider what it might feel like if his older brothers did the same to him. And I say to him, hey, buddy, can you imagine what it would be like if your younger brother knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that he could always trust you?
Do you mean the golden rule?
I think by extending compassion to him in these moments when he misses the mark will help ensure that as he grows older, more of his arrows will fly true.
Yes, restorative justice as a concept works well with children because they are still learning how to behave in society. I've talked about this before. Yes. I mean, I guess in a way, this is a roundabout restorative justice talk. But I'm probably doing more work on that concept than our speaker did.
Maya Angelou said,
"Oh no.
I did then what I knew how to do. And now that I know better, I do better."
Wow.
Maybe we're all just 10-year-olds fumbling through the world, doing the best we can with what we have, with what we know.
You haven't figured this out at this point? Really? You got kids of your own? You haven't figured this out? None of us know exactly what we're doing all the time. All of us are figuring this out as we go along. Anybody who says they know exactly what the world is, how it works, and so on and so forth is a person I don't trust to actually know that. I mean, I'm glad you've come into this wisdom at some point in your life. I wish more people would come into it sooner, so they can at least recognize in themselves, and especially in others, false prophets of a kind. But anyway.
And such is the gift of hamartia.
The gift of a turn of phrase. The gift of a concept that anyone already understands. The gift of the honest mistake versus the intentionally malicious act. These are two different things. This is no revelation. And you falling back on a Greek translation of a word from Hebrew does not make... You know what? To hell with it.
What? What is that? What the fuck is that?
I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry, not sorry. Is that hamartia or is that a sin? No. No, we got 10 seconds left on this thing, but just no.
That when we know better, when we fill in the gaps in our knowledge, both about ourselves and one another, then we truly can do better.
Oh, wow.
Thank you.
Oh, gosh. Oh, okay, no. No, utter, total, absolute balderdash. Balderdash. There's a word. The Greeks come up with that one? Okay, well, I've already called this for its category into the WTF Hall of Fame, but we still have a bingo card to look at regardless. So let me pull that up now. I gotta shrink it down a smidge so it fits on the screen. That's enough? Okay. So here's where we're at on the bingo card. I'm going to go over it one more time, and then I will take suggestions from you, chat, for any squares left to be circled. Anecdote that probably never happened. I can believe he cheated his brother at cards. I can believe his son cheated his brother at cards. I can believe he was fired from the church for supporting LGBTQ rights, and the church frowned upon that. All of that I believe. None of the anecdotes he brought up sounded beyond the pale, so I'll give him a pass on that one. Self-vilification or wretchedness. You know, you'd think that'd be an easy one, all things considered, subject matter considered, but in every way, shape, or form, he was diminishing his own self-vilification and wretchedness, you know, justified or otherwise, depending on what we were talking about. So I can't really say that one. Systemic institutional. Well, I don't think you can talk about religion or talk about the church without colliding with the notion of an institution. So I'll be circling that one. Weightless example. Hamartia is a weightless example. To say that that is the root of the concept of sin, let's say let's say, because I don't know, okay, let's say that you go all the way back to the original scripture and you find me a professor of theology or an expert in ancient Hebrew or whatever, and they tell me that the Hebrew word for sin does equate to the same concept as hamartia. Okay? I'll grant that possibility because I don't know. The problem is the word hamartia and the concept surrounding it is not the root of sin. And certainly, as we define the word today, does not mean what he was talking about in comparing what deserves compassion versus what deserves condemnation. What is an act out of ignorance or an honest mistake, and what is an act of malice, of forethought? Anyway, yeah, weightless example. Circling that one. Okay. Leaves out vital context. Yeah, I mean, just left, right, center, and otherwise. I don't know what he was getting at. I could only guess at why he was redefining it. Because, people need to love each other more. Okay, that's very hippie. That's very, I'd like to buy the world a Coke. I get it. But where were we going with this? What do you do about the person that does actually sin of their own volition? Not because someone forgot to tell them how to stand, but because, anyway, collectivize his own demographic. Okay, he never fell upon demographics per se. And he didn't talk about himself necessarily, unless I'm forgetting something, which is possible. He talked about what he wished society would do, but I don't think he extrapolated himself to represent a larger portion of the population, if you get my meaning. So, not circling that one. White supremacy, no. A list. Well, I mean, a list of two between comparing hamartia to sin. It's a list of two, so I'll circle that one. I'm being generous there. I'm sure he must have listed off something else in there as well, but either way. Privilege. No, he never really talked about privilege. Equity, no. Plays victim. His being fired, I don't see as him playing a victim. In that instance, he was kind of, he might have been a going in with his eyes wide open victim in the sense that he should have seen that coming if he understood the, institution he was a employee of. But I can't say that he played victim. Unless we want to extend it to he played the victim of having to be held responsible for what anyone else would call sin in a condemnation way, but now he should be given compassion. See, again, I can only guess. He didn't give me enough information to make that call. He might be just being absolutely altruistic in his outlook, and he's not trying to make excuses for himself, but again, I can only guess. Wage gap, no. Patriarchy, no. Feminism, no. Mind reading assumes motives. Yeah. You start talking about sin, what people do or how they should act and so on and so forth. Yeah. Circling that one. Let's see here. Thank you, Juggernaut. Why do I have a feeling hamartia would qualify as a protester attacking an ideological enemy, but it would qualify as an outright sin in reverse? Yeah, again, eye of the beholder, right? What deserves condemnation? What deserves compassion? That is all up to the person that the act has been inflicted upon. How they choose to handle it is their prerogative. And you can promote, yes, you can promote that people be more compassionate, that people look at certain things in a compassionate way rather than a condemnation way and so on. You can propose that. And I'm not going to vilify anyone who does that, right? Like I said, the guy, as his reaction and his actions at the Amber Geiger trial, I don't condemn him for making that decision. I don't look at it as a weakness or anything else. I look at it as an act of absolute courage and bravery to set aside what would be an understandable amount of anger and bitterness towards someone for taking your loved one and trying to, if only for yourself, take an action that helps you to move on as best as you can in that situation. Obviously, there's no closure per se. But again, on the flip side, I would not condemn them for being angry or bitter or not liking that person in such a situation, right? So again, promoting peace, love, and understanding, I'm not going to, like I say, I'm not going to downplay anybody trying to do that. But I'm also not going to begrudge anybody in an appropriate circumstance, at least from my opinion, from being angry if something's done to them untoward. Anyway, moving on. Thank you, Juggernaut. Diversity and inclusion, no. Oh, well, no, just talking about LGBTQ. Huh. I'll let that one sit for a second. Marginalization. Since it is not a bingo square, he was talking about the church, sort of sending him off because of his belief. He was being marginalized for his belief. And again, so I'll extrapolate a little bit. I'll be generous and circle that one. And also the concept of the church in general, or religions in general, vilifying or excluding people on the basis of their orientation, that kind of thing. That fits. Make something about race, sex, etc. for no reason. No, there wasn't any. I mean, the only non sequitur in there that I can think of was the whole Hamaracha thing, and I've already kind of circled for that one. So otherwise, he didn't bring up the usual suspects at all, really. So I can't really circle that one. And lastly, microaggressions, unconscious bias. I mean, you could say that he was promoting people moving away from the unconscious bias of condemning sin, right? Kind of. Am I being too generous there? If I'm asking myself that question, I'll let it sit. If there is any doubt, there is no doubt, as I sometimes say. So I'll leave the card there for the moment. So if you guys have any squares that should be circled, put those proposals into the chat now. I am open to a argument for diversity and inclusion. It's going to have to be a good one, though. I'm going to hold the bar pretty high. Because I could see myself, if I was a real bullshitter, and I'm totally not, making an argument for diversity and inclusion. So that's the challenge if you guys are looking for the easiest bingo on the board, as far as I can tell. So let's see. Let me get some emulation. Did he collectivize himself in the LGBTQ demographic when referring to the church's hamartia of firing him, Scribe Light, or was he fired for wrongthink? No, that's too much. The whole collectivize his own demographic, he would have to be speaking on behalf of, etc. And I don't see that situation as him doing that. He was speaking for himself for the most part, right? I mean, even though, in my opinion, the more righteous action would be to not marginalize and exclude people from things because of who they love. He was, for the most part, as far as I can tell, speaking for himself. So I don't think he was collectivizing his own demographic. He wasn't talking about white males or fathers or anything like that. So, yeah, can't really go along with that one. Let's see. Dr. Keefe says, circle the whole card. I'll do that. I will do that at the end. I will do that before the show is out. I want to get through the regular bingo phase first, and then I will circle the whole card for the WTF significance. And I will also add this stream to the WTF playlist afterwards. Let's see. Okay, this is such a bizarre... Lexi Matt, Scribelight, since it's your birthday, change white supremacy to Scribe's birthday. So we get a birthday bingo. You deserve it. Why not diversity and inclusion? Why you got to associate my birthday with that, huh? Okay. Gunfox 61. He implied he is a victim because the church fired him for his thoughts on the alphabet. But that's not him playing the victim. See, this is the thing. Someone has to, when someone's playing the victim, it has to be basically they are making up a situation where they have been victimized. Him being fired for his beliefs is not him playing the victim. He was actually the victim. It's not a false victimhood or something. So I can't mark it as a plays the victim because he was. And I don't have any reason to think he's lying about it because he didn't give me information to think otherwise. So within the context of the presentation, in that instance at least, I didn't feel that he was playing a victim. You know, he came to his victimhood honestly, let's say. And Lexi says, because it's the first square I saw, why you got to be so picky? I try to be nice, and this is what he does. I am going to argue with him so hard on a stream one day. You're already doing it. Like right now, just, you know, maybe not in person, but I mean, kind of. Jeez. Okay, I'm taking a step back. Gunfox. Yeah, I know playing the victim, but that was what he was doing. Well, I mean, using an anecdote where, you know, he's experienced something that was bad. Yeah, but it doesn't fill out the requirement of the bingo card. Let's see. I'm not seeing any. And Lexi says, "I love you, Scribbles." Thank you, Lexi. Okay. Any arguments for diversity and inclusion? Because that's what I'm waiting for. That's the only one I can see as being the easiest bingo, if there is one to be had. Jago Dragon, I don't know if someone said this, but the Bible says that those who are unbelievers will be condemned, ignorance included. You cannot be a Christian and believe that ignorance is an excuse. There are a lot of things our speaker said, well, not let alone his beliefs on LGBTQ, that would fundamentally exclude him from being a Christian, as I understand it, at least. And in fact, I seriously doubt there's anybody on the planet who could actually adhere correctly to all of the rules laid down by, well, any of the major religions. But yeah, because I mean, the concept of, I've always heard it before, like in some speeches, like what happened to all of the people who lived before Christianity existed, right? If the only way to get into heaven is to believe in Christ and believe that he is your savior and so on and so forth, what happened to the Neanderthal, right? Or just anybody else who lived before the time of Christ? And I've been told, oh, well, you know, they're all in limbo or something, right? They're all in purgatory, which isn't exactly hell, but it's certainly not heaven. So they're already condemned in a way for not thinking right, even though they had no opportunity to do so, right? Yeah, the whole ignorance is an excuse thing, and when it comes to sin and religion, yeah, it's no excuse. But, you know, again, I wasn't trying to be a theologian on this one. I was just listening to what he had to say, and it didn't make any sense either way. Let's see. Gunfox says, no bingo today. This is a massive word salad. Yeah, unfortunately, we only have one square for word salad. But as far as massive word salad, that's what the WTF is for. Let's see. And Texas Attorney General Secret Agent, after a few margaritas, limbo can be pretty fun. You made funny. You may funny. Funny. All right. Well, I don't see any arguments for diversity and inclusion. And honestly, I'd be hard pressed to think there could be one that would make the bar of a bingo in this. So all things considered, we did learn something new today. Hamartia. I did not know that word. It is analogous to many things that we already do elsewise, so it's not a new concept, but it is a new piece of vocabulary. But that aside, the more important thing is this was a WTF. Certainly it was. Because our speaker, what the fuck? But with that, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to call this inadvertent Bible study to a close. I hope you all enjoyed it, to whatever enjoyment you are capable of experiencing that does not become a sin. I leave that to you to judge for yourself. If you'd like to hear more from me or Satsu 2 Cents, you can find the two of us tonight on this channel, surprisingly enough, at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern for The Lords of the Night, where we'll talk about the news of the day, news stories you submit, what we've been up to on the internet, and then your questions and comments. Everyone, thank you so much for joining me today. I really do appreciate it. Moderators, thank you for keeping an eye on things. Even though everyone is so well behaved, you have very little to do. Everyone who donated, thank you so much for your generosity. I really do appreciate it. And thank you everyone for your argumentation and participation as we slog through this one together. As always, I hope you are all safe and well. If you're not well, please get well soon, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.